Welcome to Automotive EV. My name is Peter Wooding and thank you for joining us. Today we have episode 4 of our battery supply chain series, EV, aftermarket and reverse logistics. Joining me today we have Tiago Maffialetti. I hope I've said that right, Tiago.
Yes,
from Sono Motors, Francisco Carranza from Automotive Cell Company, Anwar Sattar from Warwick Manufacturing Group, and last but by no means least, Achim Glass from Kuehne Nagel. Achim has kindly agreed to moderate this session, so it's without further ado, I will sit back and enjoy the session, and I'll hand over to you, Achim. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Dear participants, thanks for joining the session. At all times, please be reminded again to please send us your questions via the chat function. We will observe the chat function and we are more than happy to respond to as many questions as possible. I'm Achim Glass, representing Kuehne Nagel, the global leader in logistics for new generation vehicles. And without further ado, I suggest maybe you, Anwar, would like to introduce yourself, then followed by Tiago and Francisco.
Hi, everyone. My name is Anwar Sattar. I'm a lead engineer in battery recycling, reuse, and remanufacture at the University of Warwick, or Warwick Manufacturing Group. Thank you very much. Tiago?
My name is Tiago. I am currently the logistics responsible at Sono Motors. So pretty much inbound, outbound, after sales, reverse logistics, everything. Yeah. Thanks for the invite to participate here. Pleasure.
Thank you, Tiago. And Francisco.
Hi everyone. So it's always a pleasure to join you guys in this great event. So my name is Francisco Carranza. So I'm working for ACC Automotive Sales Company, where I'm managing the sales and marketing activities.
Excellent. Dear colleagues, thank you very much. As a reminder for the audience, this is the second session of the battery supply chain, where we look into the logistics-specific challenges along the life cycle of the lithium-ion battery. In the first session, which is up you can watch it on demand on the platform, we were looking into the sourcing of the precious material, the production of the cells, and then eventually the production of the battery packs. The session today will focus on the two remaining elements. We will focus on the aftermarket for electric vehicle battery packs, so the finished battery pack, and we will then also talk about the reverse logistics for used battery packs or faulty battery packs for rebuild, for repurpose, or for recycling. So those are the two particular areas where we're going to dive into today. And at all times, our task and our objective of the session today is to identify challenges and opportunities with regards to aftermarket and end-of-life batteries. And at the end, we hope to have a short list of most important findings, which will be of great use to all of you guys joining us today. So my first question will actually go to Anwar. Anwar, when it comes to the aftermarket batteries, what is your number one concern, the biggest challenge, the biggest concern which you see from your perspective being an engineer?
Yeah, well, as you said, as an engineer, I think I look at things from an engineering perspective. And just looking at the engineering required just to ensure that these batteries are safe is a massive challenge, I feel. So for example, you need a large amount of space, so these batteries can take up 3 meters long in some cases. They require temperature control, they require fire detection, they require firefighting measures. And these spaces don't just come off often. You can't just put these batteries in a shed and just expect that to be stored. And you also have to make sure that they don't discharge, and you have to keep them at the same charge as well. So these are massive, massive challenges and on a very large scale that we have to face in the next couple of years.
Okay, Anwar, thank you very much. Tiago, you're next. When it comes to the aftermarket, what is your number one concern?
Yeah.
From a perspective
Since I'm from the logistics side, my concerns are a little bit different from Anwar. But I would just put some considerations why I have this concern. So first one, since we have a new product and it's a new market, and then we have a difficulty on the forecasts of demand. Also, the HV battery has a high price, And we as a company have a very big environmental mindset. And taking that in consideration, my biggest concern is how can I attend the request of my customers in a green, fast, qualitative and efficient way, but without carrying too much stock on my hands. So this is really my big question.
So is it more the forecasting or more the stock on hand, if you have both together?
Actually, it's how I can attend my customers fast, but without the stock, without carrying too much stock in hands. And also, how can I do all of that, keeping a green supply chain or as much as possible? So,
Okay, thank you very much. Francisco, from a battery manufacturer perspective, how about your number one concern when it comes to warranty batteries for the aftermarket?
I think I agree with Thiago. We always need to keep the end customer in mind. And as I was mentioning before in our previous discussion, the reality we see is a very few failure of batteries. It's a product that is extremely reliable. But I see also a lot of diversity of products. So even if you have just to supply very few spare parts, the fact that you have a wide diversity makes quite complex the management of the supply of those products. So during the production phase of the car, from what I have seen so far, is relatively manageable. The difficulty will come when you have several generations of batteries that have passed, and you still need to supply spare parts for customers that actually own a car that probably ended production like 10 years ago. Right? So all this diversity is going to be a nightmare to manage.
So it's on the one hand the diversity in different battery packs, and then also within the generation of these different battery packs.
No packs. Basically,
or the cells.
Is cells and modules. Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right. Well, thank you for clarifying. I understand. Let's stay with you for a second, Francisco. Besides this concern, what else comes to your mind? What other concerns do you have? Again, we want to identify bottlenecks and opportunities, and I'm taking notes over here. 3 of these biggest challenges we have already in the books, but beyond that, is there anything else where you think this is of relevance mentioning as well?
We have seen, the reality is that we have seen many suppliers having quality issues that have triggered massive recall campaigns during the past few months. We touch wood. I think this is something nobody wants to see, but it's true that whenever something like that is happening, because of the nature of the product and because of the high cost, it has a massive impact, financial impact in the car company and the supplier. So we need to be extremely conscious and extremely careful about the quality, because whenever you get something wrong, the implications could be massive.
Understand. Thiago, from your big concern, which you mentioned, okay, which is already pretty complex, anything else where you say, this is another challenge which I have, another concern which you...
Yeah, actually, the one that Francisco just mentioned, it wasn't in my thoughts, but now it is. And
Sorry,
but actually the one that you mentioned first, it was my extra concern, because when I look that maybe I need to cover 7-10 years of products to put to the customers after I'm not producing more the cars, how will I be able to do that? This is, I mean, I remember when I was working for Volvo, for some of the parts, they would carry 10 years of forecasted inventory for some parts, but I don't see that this is manageable for any automotive company right now because of the costs of the batteries. So how we're going to do it, I don't know.
Very good point. Anwar, you are last now. What else comes to your mind? Huh?
I think an important area that we need to address is skill shortage. So we're moving, what we're doing is we're going from ICEs all the way to batteries, and we're doing it at a really rapid pace. So in the UK, for example, by 2030, most of the vehicles that are going to be sold are going to be electrified. But do we have the skills in order to do that? And this applies to all throughout the supply chain, not just the sort of the aftermarket reverse logistics, but it's throughout. Do they have the skills in safety? Do they have the skills in handling them? Do they have the skills in storing them, etc.? It's a massive issue. And for example, at WMG we do these training courses, but it's not enough. It's the practical knowledge as well, and I don't think that that there's much training out there that the people are receiving, which they will require in just 5-6 years from now.
But Anwar, wouldn't you agree, Anwar, that if we had this conversation 5 years ago, we had no clue, and when you compare it to 5 years to 3 years to now, from my perspective as an LSP, as a logistics service provider, I see that there's no dedicated training just on lithium-ion batteries beyond dangerous goods class 9. So we have really become much more granular, and more people have been trained. So do you agree with me when I say there is a clear trend that there is a lot of additional training, but according to you, it's still not enough? Is that correctly summarized?
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of additional training. Of course there is, but how many people work in in sort of the supply chain industry? And that's the that's the issue. And the other issue is obviously retraining the people that already work with ICEs and stuff, and ensuring that they move smoothly onto batteries. There definitely has been an uptick, but I think the speed at which the change is occurring, it's way too fast.
Mm-hmm. Okay. A question to you guys. Do you see a difference between what's happening here in Europe compared with, in particular, with Asia? I think you all agree with me that Asia is setting the benchmark right now. They are the forerunners. And again, when it comes to these aftermarket logistics, is anything where you think that there's another top concern which we saw happening in Asia, but and we want to avoid the same shortfall here in Europe? Is there anything else what comes to your mind which you would like to highlight maybe?
You mean Asia, you mean China? Well, we are not that far from China in Europe. In terms of the volume, I think is somehow equivalent, a little bit behind. It's true that in the manufacturing side, they are far away and they're much more developed than us. But in terms of the deployment in the market, Europe is really catching up very, very quickly. I think in China as well, for a number of reasons, I think there is a certain degree of homogeneity that is making things a bit easier for the dealers and the customers and the actual aftermarket side of the business.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Gentlemen, now that we spoke about the challenges and we have a whole pedigree of different challenges over here, how about opportunities? Do you see any opportunities which come along with the further development of battery packs for the aftermarket? And besides everything which is negative, typically when they are losers, they are also winners. Okay, do you see any opportunity for new players to enter the market, for new services, for new ways to generate revenue streams, for example?
Well, for the start, I would say anyone that can come up with the questions for the concerns raised will have a big opportunity. I mean, like if you can come up with a way to, for example, forecast in a good way how many batteries we're going to need to provide to the market and so on. That's a big opportunity because companies will really need some kind of good forecasting. Mm-hmm. And I can tell right now our after sales don't run with this level of accuracy, is always based on some guessing, I would say.
Yeah. And historical data, probably.
Historical data, yeah.
Exactly.
But I mean, we are talking about cars that are carrying way more intelligence. So it's probably possible that we can have, let's say, the cars sending signals to a central, and we can forecast in a better way how to, or whenever we need parts to this car. I don't know, just some ideas.
So connectivity, all right. Francisco, Anwar, any input from you? Anything where you say these are opportunities from a production process perspective, from a battery manufacturer perspective?
Well, I think there is a big challenge in simplification, and there is a big challenge in rationalization and harmonization of the type of products we bring to the market. We saw a couple of weeks ago Volkswagen making a major big step in that direction. They understood clearly that when you're making millions and millions of cars, they're all different, many different brands, different sizes of cars and so on. You need to rationalize. Otherwise, the number of parts you're going to have is tremendous. It's going to be very, very hard to manage for any replacement, or basically to keep the customer always happy, because you have an efficient delivery of products to the dealers.
Okay, yeah. So simplification, standardization. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
But how about you? You are very early in the life cycle of all this, and you have to think through things. You have to think things through to the very, very end. You know, what you see opportunities.
I mean, I'm sure they are, but I agree with what Tiago and Francisco said. The big issue is here, you know, I'm looking at it from a sort of an academic perspective, and you guys over there are looking at it from an industrial perspective. So, you know, you've got a different perspective at this. But I think what Tiago said is quite, you know, it's quite a good point, which is that, you know, somebody needs to come up with a list of problems, and then you can come up with the solutions. That's, you know, that's a really good point. For me personally, you know, I don't really know what the problems you guys in logistics are facing. From an engineering perspective, yeah, you know, there are problems. For example, you know, you can increase training, or you can have new training courses, or you can design things better, etc. You know, more safe spaces, etc., etc. But yeah, that's my input.
Okay, but so actually, then to summarize, I think Tiago, you hit it on the nail, you know, or you hit the nail on the head by saying, look at the challenges and just reverse them, bring solutions to those challenges, and therefore I will then again summarize that, and this information will then be made available on the platform later on today. Maybe before we go into the aftermarket, into the reverse logistics, I have a question to all three of you. When it comes to swapping the batteries, you know, having batteries at a centralized warehouse, and then you put it on a truck and you bring it to the dealer, and then the dealer puts it into the vehicle. Probably all of you guys know that in China, this process is already done completely automated. NIO has announced that it's already publicly available on several highways in China, that people actually park their car at the highway, they take a quick coffee, and by the time they come back, basically a fully automated process swapped the battery and replaced the used battery, which is empty, with a new battery which has actually been fully charged. So here the idea is less to charge a faulty battery, but in the absence of charging stations, to quickly swap your battery, like at the Formula E racing, you know, not to waste half an hour time to charge your battery. Do you guys have any experience with this type of battery swap, or is this part of the strategy which you have at ACC, or which you have at Sono Motors or Warwick University? Is this something for you of interest to investigate?
I think from my previous job in Renault Nissan, this is something, as you know, we already tried 10 years ago, and didn't work for a number of reasons. So I don't think for the European market, this is a realistic business. Looking at the price of the batteries and the diversity of the batteries we're getting, in practice, this is not a manageable business.
And you know, if I mean, I was thinking about this, and I came up with three sort of bottlenecks. So the first one is, you know, you have to have a standardized battery in order to do that. You know, and that's in every vehicle, because you know, you can't have, say, if you've got, say, with Renault or Nissan, if you've got a Nissan Leaf, and you know, it has to be specific to a specific generation as well. So you can't use an old battery in a new Leaf, or a new battery in an old Leaf. So that's been the same batteries. The second one is obviously the software must also be standardized as well. So you know, again, it comes to the different types of batteries and different types of vehicles. The other issue is if you don't own the battery, then you're less likely to take care of it. So, you may look after your battery, but if you know that, tomorrow you can just swap it out for another one, then there are a lot of people that they're more likely to abuse the battery and not look after it as they would if they owned it. And the other issue you mentioned that is, if somebody is going to bring a battery pack to you from another location, then the costs are going to be massive.
Yeah. Okay, I hear you. Tiago, anything from your perspective?
We still haven't discussed anything in that direction, but this is one thing that probably we will still need to figure out in the future how we're gonna deal with that, because for Sono Motors, we don't want to have dealers, so we want to operate with partners, and we don't want to have really like the traditional car makers have a dealership that will sell the cars and then the repairs and everything. So we're gonna need to come up with partnerships and figure out a solution on that direction. But up to now, we still haven't discussed anything on automatic swaps of battery.
For me, also being a consumer, being not far away from Munich, I can potentially buy Sono Motors vehicle, and I don't see Sono Motors as a vehicle to travel long distances. It's more, I hope you will agree with me, it's more for the convenience in the city center. It's small, it's safe, it's environmentally very, very safe and sustainable, and therefore your future customers, your existing customers, I don't think, me being a potential customer, I don't have the need to swap the battery immediately. I can go do my shopping experience, and while shopping, I would charge my car. So I don't have the requirement for a fast battery swap. Whereas, again, I understood in China, these particular clientele NIO is targeting, they go long distance in this big country, okay? And therefore, also the market requirements are probably a little different in China compared to Germany. Europe.
There is the chance,
Okay.
So it may be suitable then for things like long haulage, trucks and things. If batteries are going to be used in those, they have certain stations where they go and the battery can get changed, but probably not suitable for passenger vehicles.
Yeah. I'm just taking a note here, more appropriate for long haulage. I agree. Also, what I like, Anwar, is what you said about the abuse, which is absolutely right. There's experiences about battery swap for electric bikes, for mountain bikes. I'm living in Switzerland, many, many mountains. And so you can swap the e-bike battery pack. And people are not really keen on doing that because they know I bought a premium product and who knows what I'm going to get. All right, enough said about the aftermarket, gentlemen. I have some very good notes here, which are hopefully going to be of big value to many. There are questions from the audience. This is a question over here that comes from David Searson. And David is asking the question, and this I think goes to you, Anwar. It says, what field in particular do you think the skills shortage will be? Engineering for sure, but will it be chemical, mechanical, or electrical?
That's a really good question. Really, really good question. I actually think that it's going to be a mixture of the three, because all three of them are essential. So the chemical shortages, the chemical skill shortage will come because we don't have any battery production facilities in the UK, for example. I'm just talking about from a UK perspective here. Every country will have their own, sort of different view. The electrical shortage, electrical skill shortage is probably going to be the biggest one. Because at the moment we've got thousands and thousands of sort of people that are qualified to work on vehicles, but I think something like only 2,000 or something were HV trained, so really, really low number. I think it was less than 5%. So again, that's a big issue. And the other one is mechanical. Yep, but I think mechanical is probably the one that can be overcome the easiest, simply because it's something that they learn on the job rather than something that requires very specific training. Not that it doesn't require specific training, but I mean, of course, you've got high voltage involved as well. So I don't think you can be a mechanical worker without being HV trained for electric vehicles.
Okay.
So those two go hand in hand.
Okay. I don't know, Francisco, whether you also would like to comment on that question, or whether you say no, a pass.
No, I think I agree we were saying, I think is true that the competences are not there yet, but we need to anticipate and make sure that we can train enough people so we can get all of this deployed effectively.
Okay, very good. Thank you. I think the next question is came in from Simon Jones, and I'm looking at you, Thiago, here to be the forerunner to respond to that. Given the size and the weight of the batteries, realistically, for the future, can the traditional dealer model handle this scenario? Should the vehicle manufacturers have central hubs to handle recall of faulty or defective batteries?
Well, that came very, very much in alignment with my second concern. So I don't know exactly the answer to that, but it's for sure. I don't think the traditional model will be able to handle with this problem, because as I mentioned before, to keep a stock of, I don't know, to cover the 10 years of demand, it's first of all too expensive, and second, if the battery is on stock for 10 years, the costs of maintenance, like to keep charging the battery, measuring, and can be that the batteries at the end of the period are already dead before even went to the car. So I don't know the answer, but for sure something new is required.
Okay, well, I want to thank Simon Jones. Simon, I don't think we met yet, but this is an excellent question because it takes us to the next topic now, to the reverse logistics, which is exactly, Simon, the question you are raising. What are we actually doing with regards to how can we replace those used, damaged, or defective batteries in the future? So, Thiago, you mentioned already that it's yet a little bit unclear how it's going to work. But maybe Anwar, Francisco, do you guys have any big challenge, any major concern which you see when it comes to replacing the batteries? Okay, so, and we know this battery, to keep it simple, let's just assume this battery is just dead. There was no accident, okay? It's not a fire or so, but the battery is just old and worn out after 4, 5, 6, 7 years of use. And now we want to replace this battery. And the dealer already decided this battery is so worn out, such an old racehorse, this will go straight to recycling. It could go to test centers, you know, it could go also for repurpose. Let's keep it simple for the sake of simplicity of the discussion. Let's just assume an old battery goes to recycling. What is your biggest concern when you think about that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I actually work on battery recycling, so probably a good question to answer. My biggest concern with battery recycling is actually transportation, and it's the cost of transportation. And I'll tell you why. So an end-of-life battery, depending on how big it is, so let's say a 250 kilogram battery, probably has about £500 in material value. And at the moment, the transportation cost for the battery, if it's in good condition, is probably £250 to £300. Now that's 50% of the value of the battery, and only if you get 100% of the value from the battery could you justify that. But most recyclers will not be able to do that. Most recyclers will only get maybe 40-50% of the value. So you're not going to be paying £250 in transportation costs to get £250 out of the battery. So by far, my biggest worry for battery recycling is transportation costs. If we don't reduce the transportation costs, battery recycling is not going to be economically viable.
Okay. Francisco, Thiago, any opinion from you?
Yeah, I think that there is always a misconception in there about what electric vehicle battery is. Right. So in principle, all the batteries are designed to last more than 20 years. Right. So there will be zero battery replacement. And if there is any reason whatsoever that is forcing the battery to be replaced before 20 years, there will be a massive problem. And the least of the worries will be the logistics or how do we do to replace? Because I mean, it's something that is simply not conceivable. So the battery itself has a life that is much longer than the vehicle. And our view is we need to be looking at how can we reuse the battery for stationary applications or other applications after the customer has scrapped his vehicle, right? And then obviously logistics is fundamental because the residual value of the battery is very low. So if you need to spend more money to recover the battery than the actual value of the battery is, the economics are not going to fly.
Mm-hmm.
Just to take it off a bit of a tangent, I think if a battery gets to a stage where, let's just say, it has to be recycled, it should be recycled, because older batteries tend to contain more valuable metals. And the longer you keep that battery the longer you use the battery, the more resources you have locked up. So if you can get an old battery, for example, an NMC 111, you can potentially use the cobalt in the batteries to make 3 new NMC 811s. And so it's better to then use that resources and actually make new batteries which are better and longer lasting than to keep it in an application where it's just taking up resources.
But you know, at the moment, recycling a battery costs you money, right? So it's not a self-finance operation. So car companies are not going to proactively push for that if they can find a way to actually keep making money with the battery instead of spending.
That's true, but then you also have to look at the remanufacturing costs, etc., etc. And it gets to a point where, for example, from Nissan, it's cheaper to buy a new battery pack for grid storage than it is to buy a remanufactured one. So you also have to look at it that way as well.
I was the one in charge of doing that for Nissan, so I can tell you that buying a new battery is going to cost you a lot of money.
Yeah.
Francisco, let me challenge you on these 20 years. Again, from a consumer perspective, that I am, even though I'm not driving EV yet, but I don't think the battery lasts for 20 years. Isn't that a little bit?
It usually lasts more than that. I'm saying 20 as a round number. But in principle, it should be much longer than that. Our commitment today to the customers is that the, let's say, life of the battery inside the car without a significant degradation is going to be around 15 years. Right? So, and it's not unique to us. Every battery player in the world is already coming to the market with 1 million kilometer warranty. I see some guys going to 1 million miles warranty. I mean, it's crazy, right? So because it's pointless. It's basically what it said is the battery is going to last longer than your car, basically.
Yeah. Okay.
Obviously, you are a taxi, or if you are,
Can I just jump on a point here? Sorry. So, sorry, Achim. So about 30 years ago, Mercedes used to have parts where they would last longer than the vehicle would be on the road. So then they went through a stage where they actually reduced the quality of the parts that they're putting in, or at least that's what I heard. And just so that when the vehicle's being recycled, the parts are end of life. Do you think that will happen with batteries as well? As technology improves, will they get to a stage? Because at the end, because you'll reach a point where you can't put these batteries into grid storage anymore because there will be no more capacity. How much batteries can you chuck into grid storage?
It's not going to work like that, because actually is the remaining capacity the limiting factor, right? So the customer, the owner of the car, will not accept that the capacity degrades over a certain percentage.
Okay.
Oh, Francisco is gone.
Yeah, the 20 years of battery in his laptop just went out.
No.
No, there you are. But Tiago, I have a question for you. To bring this session to an end over here, let's talk a little bit about sustainability. Francisco mentioned the 1 million mile, 1 million kilometer battery, and you also were alluding to the circular economy, to the reuse of material and certain types of cell chemistries. Tiago, I see your company. When I think about your company, I think green, and I heard you even have some mows inside the cars. Okay, so to refresh the air. So, what is, when it comes to sustainability, to logistics, what are your concerns? Or what are your thoughts? Not concerns, but what are your commitments? To the market.
Yeah. So first of all, if you allow me, I would make some kind of a merchandising from the company here. It's just that for us, sustainability is not only the product. We are not saying that we are sustainable because we sell an electric vehicle, but we have that in every single area of the company. And that means that when we look for a partner, we will see if that partner is also trying to, I mean, we understand that for some things, I mean, if I want to transport a part from China to Germany or Sweden, some carbons will be required. There's no way, at least not yet. But we will try to do as green as possible and not look only into the financial side. When we are choosing our suppliers, we are also checking how their processes are and if they are aligned with that. Our manufacturing partner in Sweden have the plant almost with 100% solar and wind power. So this is very important to Sono Motors. And our product carries also like we have the option to share the rides or share the car with the app that will come with the car. So if you are not using too much your car, or the car is stopped the most of the time in front of your work, someone can come and use your car meanwhile, and that's also good for the battery life, so that the car is not too much stopped. We are developing the car to be a vehicle to grid approach, meaning that we can exchange power between vehicles. And last but not least, we are developing partnerships that can also use our solar panels. So if you can imagine a bus, a truck, maybe a train covered with solar panels, so, and that bringing energy to a power plant. So this is something that it's a new business that we are trying to bring it on. And this is just to say that when we as Sono Motors think on sustainability, we don't think only on the product, but we try to look the big picture.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Francisco, Anwar, any comments from you when it comes to logistics and sustainability? You know,
I mean, I agree. Sustainability is need to be part of every single activity of the company. It's not just something you do as a CSR report. It's something that need to be embedded in every single operation. Obviously, logistics seems a key area, but not only that, right? So is how do you manage the operations? Which type of energy are you using for your facilities? All of this is fundamental and more critical as we go forward, because we see that the sensitivity of the end customer and the car companies is becoming bigger and bigger in this topic. And every time, at least for us, when they come to us, one of the key topics is sustainability.
Yeah. Okay. Very good.
I'll approach it from a slightly different angle. So instead of talking about just logistics, I'll talk about the metals that go into the batteries. Because essentially, when it comes to batteries, that's what it's about. The metals such as lithium, nickel, cobalt, and copper, these are very expensive metals. And actually, the expensiveness of the metals itself gives them the ability to be fully recycled. So if you look at other metals like aluminium and iron and steel and things, they're actually downcycled, meaning that once they go into a car, afterwards they just get melted up and just form into an alloy. Whereas the metals that go into batteries, because of their high price, they actually bleached in acid and then formed as new metals all over again, and they can be used many times as a result.
Okay.
So potentially the battery metals are much more sustainable than the metals that go into an average car.
Okay. All right. There's another question, and this question is dealing around, there's a thesis, and the thesis over here starts with saying, as the number of electric vehicles will increase over the months and years, the likelihood of accidents will also increase. With that in mind, what place do insurance companies play in the future of the recovery and the recycling or the repurposing of the battery, keeping in mind that the value of resources that remain in the particular battery. It's also a very interesting question, you know, and I read it now. I don't know, I think you can see it on your screen as well. So the role of insurance companies. First, personally, if I can also comment to that, I don't know whether the number of accidents will significantly increase because of the drive electrification, autonomous driving, the sensors and all of these things, you know, so overall the number of accidents will unfortunately go down. You know, our company, we live a lot on the aftermarket business, on the many spare parts, and that will significantly reduce. But that was not the topic of the question. The question here is the role of insurance companies in the future. Any opinions from your three different perspectives, from you, from engineering, from battery production, and also from OEM perspective?
I think the I think the insurance companies will take the most profitable route, as they always do. They'll just look at it from an economics perspective. If they can sell the battery, you know, for a price, then they will. And if they have to recycle it, then it'll just be economics that will dictate it.
I think in the past, the experience we had, indeed, I mean, there are very few batteries coming back from car crashes. But in general, the car companies are going to have a specific policy that are going to prevent those batteries to be reused. So they will go all immediately to recycling. And also I agree with you. I mean, we have already seen a massive reduction in the number of car crashes because all the sensors and all the intelligence are put in there. So it's extremely good for the customer, but it's extremely bad for the after-sales business because is one of the major revenue streams that is no longer going to exist in the future.
Yeah, and I go actually in the same direction from Achim and Francisco. I mean, and that's actually one of the things that, for example, in our product, we are trying to cover. So our product is a low-cost electric vehicle that we are trying to bring to the people that usually are not able to pay like a lot of money in a Tesla car, for example. And they are supporting the idea of having electric vehicle, but they are not aiming to afford that amount of money. And the intelligence that the guys are trying to bring it on is really to prevent accidents to happen. And I think that should bring the accidents to a lower level.
I also maybe, David Searson was asking this question over here. If I recall correct, there was a pretty good paper from McKinsey out there talking about new revenue streams from autonomous driving, where in the past insurance companies based their revenues on demographics. You know, are you 18 years old and a new driver, or are you 55 years old and you never had an accident? This model will disappear because we will have the real life user statistics, live data, and this will obviously then have an impact on how much is an insurance company eventually going to charge you.
And sorry, before we go, just one other step. So with all these new sensors and things in vehicles, I think what we need to do is we actually need to have a look at the impact it'll have on sustainability, because you're putting in a heck of a lot of technology into a car which becomes redundant in 10, 12 years. So what happens to all those sensors, those radars, and whatever else is in there? That's quite an interesting topic. It's more of an academic topic at this point, but in terms of sustainability, I think it's something that should be looked at.
All right, very good. To all three of you, I took 2 pages of notes. I will transmit them over to Peter later on today, who will then, again, we will make this available on the platform. I would like to thank all of you, Anwar, Thiago, Francisco, for your time this afternoon. Very, very interesting. I knew that we could continue to discuss this for a long, long time, but we are all in the community, so I can encourage our community members to reach out to all of us if you have additional questions. And without further ado, Peter, back to you for the closing.
Well, thank you, all of you. Absolutely superb session. And to think the amount of time in relation to a couple of questions or so, or 3, it really is an interesting topic moving forward. And I like sort of the aspects of the dealer part as well. You know, will a dealer, why wouldn't a logistics company be doing the refurbishment and servicing of the electronics part? You know, they bring it in the first place. Mm-hmm. Why won't they be central to building? Because XYZ dealership is, with the question that was in, is really going to struggle with weight, sizes, and actually staff capabilities. So I think we've got lots more to be talking about on this, but we've run out of time. But really, thank you all very much indeed. As Akim mentioned, anybody on the platform, feel free to reach out directly to everybody. And for everyone who didn't want to ask a question in an open floor that's literally has gone around the world, just pop a question into their member box, and I'm sure they'll give you an answer. But take care, everybody. Thank you, and thanks everybody for watching as well.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Hi, it's Peter again, and thank you for watching the session. Don't forget you can connect with all members within the EV community. Send messages to each other and start to build relationships for the future. Also, take a look at our supplier showrooms. Our partners have got lots of products and services that they have to offer, which again could be of benefit to you. Make the most of the opportunity, and thank you again for joining us.